Chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to go through, and I'd like, if you can, give me short answers so I can get as much done in the next 5 minutes as possible. Governor Bell, starting with you, have you heard of any problems with hydraulic fracturing within the boundaries of Utah? Okay. What are your reflections? This is going to impact you more than anybody else, but as you know, the BLM is getting ready to issue its own set of hydraulic fracturing regulations. What do you think about that? What do you think the impact would be on the economy in your state? Well, and oil and gas activities?
It takes 8 years for us to negotiate NEPA. We had 7 years of resource management plans the BLM helped us develop, which were tossed by Interior when this new administration came in. You overlay that with federal regulation on fracking, and this is going to devastate our industry.
Do you think that Utah has been treated differentially versus Wyoming and Colorado with respect to the potential listing of the sage grouse?
Yes, I don't know the comparison with Colorado, but certainly Wyoming had a voluntary plan, which is a model plan, and we're on the cusp of that, and now apparently are not going to be able to bring it home.
We'll probably want to come back and visit with you on that at some point in the future. Do you see that, I mean, you've got state land that's managed, you've seen the federal government manage, 75% of the land within your border. Do you think the federal government manages its land any better than the state of Utah manages it?
Well, it's joked that it's not under new management, it's under no management.
Okay, that's good. And with respect to protection of critical habitat, do you think that the federal government does it any better today than the state government of Utah does?
I think not. I've done a lot of land planning. We've had a wonderful land bill in one of our counties, which has worked extraordinarily well, negotiated by all parties, and we're very proud of our record. In 1995, we had $95 million in our state trust lands, school trust. We now have $1.5 billion.
That's impressive. Mr. Simmers, one of the metrics you didn't talk about was the permit timing differences of the state versus the federal government, or if you did, I missed it. We're talking about 307 days on average for a drilling permit issuance for federal lands. What is it for the state of Ohio?
In the state of Ohio, our permitting is mandated by law. We can't issue a permit sooner than 10 days. And for certain permits, they have to be issued within 21 days, others 30 days.
So what's the average roughly?
Average about 13.
13, okay. So 307 days for the federal government versus 13 days. I assume that has a big economic impact on your state. I mean, you don't have that much federal land within your borders, but I mean, theoretically, it would be huge for the return to the taxpayer on this important taxpayer-owned asset.
Yes.
Your experience with hydraulic fracturing, I think you addressed. Can you tell me again, have you had any issues in the state of Ohio with hydraulic fracturing?
Ohio's had hydraulic fracturing going on since about 1952. Some 80,000 wells have been fractured.
Okay.
Not one incident in groundwater contamination.
One of the things you said was particularly enlightening for me, and you talked about how Ohio addressed the regulatory process, and you'd used the term gap analysis, which is what we use. When I came from the real world, we use gap analysis to determine how do you draw up a set of procedures or processes for anything. So based on what you've seen of the federal regulatory process, have you ever seen them use gap analysis or just some wild whim to address the regulatory scheme?
Frankly, I don't know how they're doing it. We haven't been involved in it or asked to be involved.
That answers my question for me. And then do you see any advantages to the way federal land in Ohio is managed versus the way Ohio manages its state property?
We all have the same goal, protection of people and the environment. We're there. We have the numbers. We have the resources, including the financial wherewithal to get it done, and I think that's all we need.
Okay. And Commissioner Patterson, I think you addressed the issue of hydraulic fracturing very well when you talked about Lisa Jackson, former EPA administrator, said we've got no issues, that we've had no problems with that in the past, so I won't ask you that question. Do you see any differences in terms of the quality of the way the state manages state land versus the way the federal government manages federal land in the state? Now, I realize in Texas we don't have that much federal land. You've got about 12 seconds.
Okay, well, what I see is the anecdotal reports, and not only anecdotal reports from my counterparts in those states in the West who do have federal land, and clearly the state model is superior.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Now I yield back.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Chair